The track you were just listening to was a little snippet from the second movement of Aaron Copland's Clarinet Sonata, performed by none other than our amazing guest today, Richie Hawley. As clarinet professor with Rice University and having 17 years of experience with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, he brought some great perspectives and advice to the interview today. So I hope you enjoy this great conversation with Richie Hawley. Hello, clarinet enthusiasts, and welcome to episode number 18 of the podcast. And sitting with me here today is somebody who has had a very successful career as a clarinetist, has spent 17 years in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, and is the clarinet professor at Rice University currently. I am honored to welcome Richie Hawley to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Emily. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I know that you've had such a successful career and there's so much we can dive into in this interview. So why don't we just start at the beginning of your journey?
Super. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do
What
it.
first drew you to the clarinet? What did those early days look like for you?
Well, my dad played the clarinet and not professionally, though he wanted to for a while. But there was a clarinet in the house, so I was familiar with the sound, and I really just liked the sound, and it was one of those things I was just unbelievably um, driven to play the clarinet because I liked the sound of it. It's as simple as that, and probably had my dad played the oboe or banjo or whatever would have been there, I would have liked the sound of that as well. But I knew I had to make music.
Was there a teacher or a mentor in your life at some point that you felt like particularly influenced your career and made you want to play the clarinet even more?
Yeah, well, all of them. I had two teachers through my life. I started studying the clarinet when I was 9 with Yehuda Galad, and he was a student at USC at that time. And he taught me how to read music, actually. So, and he was a real inspirational figure for the 9 years that I studied with him. And then when I went to Curtis, I studied with Donald Montanaro. And at that point, he was playing a lot of principal in the Philadelphia Orchestra, and it was always an inspiration to hear him play.
Yeah. When you studied with Yehuda Galad, was that at Colburn or did you take lessons with him separately?
No, he was a student at USC.
Oh, I
He was
see.
25. He was a grad student, so it was in the garage apartment that he was renting from one of his relatives.
Oh, wow. Yes, you kind of caught him at like the beginning of his career
Oh
almost. How
yeah.
did you meet him?
My father had studied with Mitchell Lurie,
Hmm.
uh, and so my dad had called up Mitchell Lurie just out of the phone book, had looked him up and said, "Hey, my son wants to take clarinet lessons. Do you still teach?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I don't teach beginners, but I have a student of mine from Israel, and uh, connected us with Yehuda, and that was just an amazing stroke of luck."
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You ended up with a very good basis of
Yeah,
starting your career. Yeah.
yeah. He
It's
is the
so,
the master at embouchure design, that's for sure.
hmm Yeah, I'm sure the years you spent with him were very influential.
Yeah, yeah. That's an understatement.
Was there a point in your career where you realized that the clarinet would be the career for you?
Yes, it was watching a I had, I guess, a month of really wonderful concert experiences and won some competitions. And in that same month, there was a broadcast of the New York Philharmonic on TV. And I had gone to like kids programs at the LA Phil, but watching like a real program on TV with all the up close and zoom ins on everybody, I was just awestruck and seeing somebody, it was Stanley Drucker, play the clarinet. And my dad said, you can do that for a living if you wanted. I was, yes, please, I have to do that. And so I think I was 12, and at that point, everything else took a back seat for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and since then, obviously from an early part of your career, you started doing a lot of solo and orchestral playing. At that point, what made a performance feel successful to you? What was it that
That's
kind of
a
made you
great
think,
question.
yeah.
You know, Emily, I would like to say, that I felt artistically rewarded. I did, I think it felt successful that I didn't make mistakes, which was impossible. I made a lot of mistakes, but it felt successful just that I completed something that I wanted to to accomplish, that feeling of accomplishment and of making music, and was really rewarding. Um, it always felt like I could not play without being terrified.
Mm.
That was a huge hurdle for me for decades and decades. Just that fear of performance fear. Everybody has it. Nobody talks about it, but
Mhm.
I'm happy to talk about it. But that was a real big hurdle to try to get over. And at that point, I knew, oh, wow, um, I've got to get through this part of being a performing musician to really get to where I want it to be.
Do you feel like there was something in particular that helped you get over that fear of stage fright or performing?
Yes, and it was the realizing that I'm always going to get nervous. I get just as nervous now as I did 10 years ago, as 30 years ago, as when I was a kid. Um, it's exactly the same feeling of sheer terror. But then I now know, well, this is just a temporary thing and it's not real and I'm not going to die. And the more that I ignore this, the faster it's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So it was making friends with it, really.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. I don't know if you've listened to any of my older podcasts, but I one of the guests I've had on was Wesley Ferreira, and we had a whole podcast conversation on that specific thing
Mm,
because he's a professional clarinetist professor at Colorado State University, and then he also is a public speaker and helps people overcome stage fright and just being themselves in the performance setting. So thankfully, I
that's
think it's becoming more of a thing that's talked about and
Well, I think
discussed.
it's important. It's the elephant in the room, and it's never going to go away. I have a concert next week, and I'm nervous, and I just know how to manage that. And I still get just as nervous, but when I realize it's not life and death, and that people are there to enjoy the concert and not be critical of my playing, then that helps shift the narrative in my head.
Yeah, for sure. And you being a Yehuda student, I actually, the person after Wesley Ferreira that I interviewed was Andrea Caputo. I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
know
Yeah, of
him.
course.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, from the LA Phil. And we talked a little bit about him because he was one of his students. And I asked him this question, and I'm curious what you think. But as a Yehuda student, he really focused on just finding your own sound and being unique because everybody has their own shaped soft palette and hard palette, and so every clarinetist have their own unique sound. How were you able to focus on finding your sound rather than focusing on maybe mimicking another clarinetist?
That's a very interesting question. I think that Yehuda taught me really the principles of having a very centered, focused sound, and then really trying to keep it from he would never let me use the word dark. He's like, don't try to make a dark sound. That's like the four-letter word because it prevents singing and prevents musicality, is what he told me. And this was reinforced when I went to Philadelphia, that you want to have a colorful sound that you can make light and dark and heavy and bright and all sorts of different colors depending upon the music, if it's just one size fits all. So it was early on giving me guardrails. And then when I was in college, I really enjoyed trying to imitate everybody's sound. I could listen to recording and I could do it now. I mean, you tell me anybody, I think I could imitate their sound exactly.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear you say that he he was just like, don't do a dark sound because at my clarinet upbringing, I think I heard a lot like try to aim for that dark sound. So was it more like he wanted you to be more versatile as a musician?
Absolutely. I mean, focusing
Yeah.
on a dark sound, that's the great irony. Saying focus and dark is two opposite things. And you can have a rich sound that has lots of overtones and that adds a depth to it. And it's very much like when you compact uh, it's compressing the sound. I know a lot of people talk about that too. The more it gets compressed, the more then it can radiate that richness. And unfortunately, a lot of people just blow in properly to make a dark sound, and it causes a lot of problems in their playing. Rather than trying to make a really focused sound, not bright, but just a very dense focused sound, and then that will ultimately be a much darker sound than, quote, darker than when people just try to take equipment or blow in a certain way, equipment to make it dark or blowing in a certain way just to make it dark. It's very counterproductive.
This might be more of a subjective question, but how would you describe your ideal clarinet sound?
It's not it's I would quote Donna Montanaro where it's a diamond wrapped in velvet, where there's a real solid core, but then there's this rich layer of chocolate or velvet or uh, something very supple surrounding it, so it's never angular at all.
Hmm. Are there any artists or recordings or performances that has influenced your artistry as a clarinetist?
Growing up, it was the clarinet players of the Netherlands Wind Ensemble, and they had a very funky sound at that time. The Dutch clarinet players is really different, but I liked it. It was kind of wide, and I I love the sound that's very similar to that of Paul Meyer back in the 80s and 90s. And there's a wonderful recording he has of the Saison Sonata.
Mhm.
Uh, Paul Meyer, however you want to say it. And that's, to me, one of the finest clarinet sounds in that recording.
Wow, I've never heard anyone specifically reference the Netherlands clarinets. Oh,
Yeah, but there was a different time. Right now,
okay.
most people in the Netherlands play on buffets, uh, or maybe some obols, but it's pretty much a French system. But back then, it was just something else in the 70s and 80s. Those recordings were made in the 70s. I listened to them in the 80s, but it was a funky sound, and I kind of liked it. And so that was fun. It was like very colorful and dark. But Paul Mier in that recording really was one of my favorite sounds. Not again, he's French. It's not Dutch clarinet playing, and it's from the late '80s or early '90s.
Were they playing on German clarinets?
I don't know. I can't even tell you. I have
Hmm.
no idea. Um, I was just in Austria uh, last fall and heard the Vienna Opera. The clarinet playing. German clarinet playing might be a little on the rounder side, and Vienna clarinet playing, because their instruments are a little bit more focused. It's very interesting, just nationality-wise, how countries have a certain sound, I think.
Yes, so I that is so interesting. I'm gonna have to check out the some of these recordings after this.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any recommendations?
The Netherlands Wind Ensemble with Ido de Wart conducting. Anything from then, that's a cool sound. It's really different. You don't hear anything like that now.
Hmm.
Ido de Wart. And then uh, yeah, that was the era of that interesting Netherlands wind ensemble sound. Very woody, very woody.
Hmm. You said it was you don't really come across it nowadays. How did you find it back then?
I loved woodwind chamber music, and that was the records. Those were the records that were available to buy at Tower Records in Westwood in Los Angeles.
Very nice. Yeah. So my next question for you would be, this might cause some debates among clarinetists, but I'm curious to see what you think. Is
Sure.
there a composer or a few composers that you feel like represent the clarinet the best?
Copeland, I'd say.
Mm.
really represent the clarinet the best. Copland and Mozart. Mozart, Brahms, Copland, um, for sure. And I think the Hale Stork, who doesn't write a lot of music for the clarinet, but the Three Smiles for Tracy just really captures so many wonderful colors and possibilities on the clarinet. Um, and then, of course, Joan Tower with Wings. I mean, that is biblical in every sense for a solo clarinet piece. It really she challenges the player to explore the outer realms of dynamics and register and speed. Uh, taking the clarinet to the max.
Yeah. Why, so other than the Joan Towers piece, the other pieces you mentioned, why those over some other clarinet solo pieces?
Well, I think Copland, you know, all of his symphonic work really, really is dependent upon the large intervals, right? And nobody can do large intervals, I think, as well as the clarinet. So you listen to all the solos like in Billy the Kid or Appalachian Spring, just huge soaring intervals. So he really captures what the clarinet does the best. And then it's what he did in the clarinet concerto, though he wrote it for Benny Goodman. I think it's very independent of Benny Goodman's style. It was written well for the clarinet, and obviously Mozart, because his drinking and hangout buddy was a clarinet player, was tuned into some great clarinet playing, and without Stadler, I don't think we'd have a lot of the development of the clarinet as we do now. We'd be still behind, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, and I really like how one of my favorite things about the clarinet is how soft it can get compared to some
Yeah.
of the other instruments, and I think that's really displayed in Copeland in all of Copeland's music. So
Yes.
yeah, very cool. Yeah, on the topic of technique, do you have any go-to technical exercises?
Yeah, the Jean-Jean Vadamakum. I do that all the time. Do you know that?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Here, I'm going to take a read and put it on my clarinet. You might have seen it. It's pretty. Wow, I love my clarinet's out of focus, but the sound is going to be bad. It might not even work through. I don't know what my zoom settings are. Well, I should try to wet the reed. So it's like just focusing on the left hand. Here, I'm gonna like get the clarinet so it's in focus. So just like on these two notes. Wow, it's zooming in. When did Zoom get this factor? And yes, I banged my finger. That's what that mark is. But so really, like left hand only or
Mm,
right hand only, just very singular interval work is really important for me.
mm. Do you feel like that's more interval practice or finger practice or just like a
That for me,
combination?
I use for finger practice.
Okay. Yeah. Is this something that you have used throughout your clarinet career, or is this something
Yes,
kind of new?
from like no, from like day one. So maybe that's why I'm
Okay.
so partial to it.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I can do the whole thing memorized, but it's very, very helpful.
Yeah. Very nice. Is it like on IMSLP? Can we find it there?
No, you should buy music. You should own a copy of it. I'm very anti IMLSP because a lot of those things are not very good arrangements.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Yeah.
it's an etude book, Jean Jean. Um, it's French, Vade, Vade, Vade Macum.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to look into it and maybe put a link in the description for
It's
people to check out.
awesome. And
Yes.
then you
Yeah, I'll
do
have
the
to try.
right hand, the
Mhm.
right hand. So it's just like basic intervals, but that's so hard. F sharp to D sharp, like
Hmm.
getting that.
Hmm.
right? I mean, I look at the video here, like how sloppy is that? But it's one of those things. It's timing and learning your brain, learning your fingers, and how to do those intervals, and programming your brain weekly. It's so hard still.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean just thinking about that, it's like that the E flat to F sharp is part of the G harmonic scale that we play all the time. It's such a tough interval that needs to be practiced and kind of
It needs to be
nurtured. So,
practiced.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I'll definitely check that out. I'm glad you showed us that.
Yeah, it's very good.
Hmm. Yeah, so after 17 years of playing in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, what have those years taught you about orchestral musicianship rather than just solo musicianship?
I think that when you're in an orchestra, um, you learn the most important thing is having good response with your setup. A lot of people that are not uh, in an orchestra, they don't put a priority on that. Uh, there's a conductor, there's a beat that moves. It doesn't care if you're behind. Uh, it only cares that beat that everyone's following. You have to be with it. And the clarinet is notorious for the saggy, not precise entrances. And a lot of times people just are not playing equipment that's responsive.
Mhm.
So if that were to be the case in an orchestra, you'd be fired. You can't not come in because then people just think you've got bad rhythm. And nobody wants to be with anybody that's got bad rhythm.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I've actually recently been looking into different mouthpieces and different equipment. I play on a BD5 and I've kind of been focusing on, I like the dark resistant sound, but the problem I'm running into sometimes is the articulation, the attack is just like what you said, it kind of delays. What do you play on? What do you recommend?
Well, I think the I'll tell you what I play on in a second. The most important thing is you want your setup to have resistance, right? Um, you can have resistance in your clarinet. You could have resistance in your mouthpiece. You can have resistance, just by design. Resistance in your barrel, and you can have resistance in your reed. The problem is people often will have a clarinet that's resistant, has a lot of back pressure. We'll put on a barrel that is resistant, and then have a mouthpiece that's resistant, and then put on a hard reed. So it's sort of like you're doomed if that's the case. Um, but you do need that resistance in the clarinet to push against. Sorry, in your setup. So it doesn't matter where it is, and for my students, that's where I want them to find where it works best for them. Um, Most of them do it with a combination. But if you have a mouthpiece that's resistant, that's okay as long as you're choosing really responsive reeds.
Hmm.
So it makes reed life a little bit more challenging. Similarly, if you have a very free blowing mouthpiece, it makes reeds really very difficult because then you're dependent upon a more resistant reed, and having that consistency of that resistant reed is really challenging. So it's a sort of finding the right handshake of equipment for your own personal needs. And we evolve over time. What was good for you for when you picked out that BD5, it was great. That's why you played on it. And it's what got you to where you are right now. And there's a lot of great options out there that you can choose. There's a lot of boutique mouthpiece makers that I think do a lot better job than some of those uh, production mouthpieces. I play on. I'm just in the middle of switching over to a Dacios mouthpiece, Mike Dacios, and um, also play on a Lee Livingood mouthpiece. Both those are great mouthpieces. Brad Bain makes great mouthpieces. Ramon everyone knows Ramon. Ramon Wachowski makes great mouthpieces. Cantor makes great mouthpieces. There's a half dozen people that can make something that's just right for you. And Some are expensive, some are really not. Some are very reasonable.
Yeah. Is there like a go-to you go towards, or do you feel like you're always changing and switching out which mouthpieces you like to use?
I usually I played most of my uh, I played all my orchestra career on the on a Henry Shedville. When I was in Charleston, even before I was in Cincinnati for 17 years, and then I switched off of that to a different Shedville here when I moved to Houston, and then I started exploring these other makers, and I find they can do some stuff that's just as good as the vintage mouthpieces, if not better. And you can drop them and then say, "Oops, I dropped it. It broke." Call them up and say, "I need another one tomorrow."
Mhm. Yeah, so did you use a different mouthpiece, like an orchestra, versus when you did
Yeah,
solo playing? Okay,
I
so you'd
did.
switch it up.
Oh no, no. At that time, it was like what I played in orchestra. I mean, if I played a concerto somewhere, it was. I didn't switch mouthpieces. I played on the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what do you feel like separates a truly virtuosic clarinetist versus someone who just has great technique?
That they're saying something through their instrument. One thing, one simple thing that they have something to say and they're using their instrument to say it.
Hmm. How do you how do you balance um, playing exactly what the composer has written versus saying something or being yourself?
Well, the composer left instructions, right?
Hmm.
And my job was spending decades being a scholar and trying to learn about the composers. And people don't bother thinking about what was somebody's life like. What was Brahms's life like? What was his love life like? Could talk all about Clara Schumann and all of that, and where his influences, where his inspirations. Where did he take his walks? Where did he take his naps? And all that paints a portrait of somebody that then gives me a little bit of a insight to what they might have been feeling. And so my job as an artist is to serve what Brahms wrote. Uh, if I'm playing Clara Schumann, serve what she wrote. What was going on in that time, in that year, in that month that it was written, and try to do that research because all that plays into how I want to interpret it and how I want to try to do my job, which is to bring the emotions of some people that are long gone to life for a few moments in front of an audience. That's my job. That's what I do. So I think being my own creativity, it's mostly creativity in my recreation of what they might have wanted to have happen on the stage.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just becomes all about me, and no one wants to hear that. I'd rather hear what Brahms had to say, or Clara Schumann had to say, or what they had to say to each other through their music.
Hmm. Very wise. Yeah, I think uh, these composers write very passionately and write towards things going on in their life, and sometimes we don't think of that, and sometimes I can be guilty of that as well too. So that's just a great reminder to just look into what the composers were thinking and feeling and try to play into that. I really like that advice.
Awesome.
During your, I'd like to switch to your teaching career a little bit
Sure.
at Rice.
Yeah.
Um, so you've had a really successful teaching career. During student auditions, when you're considering who to accept into Rice, what qualities do you look for in a student that makes you think that they'll have some exceptional potential?
Um, just that they have something to say through their instrument and they're not just playing the notes. That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then once they get past that, I just have to see personality wise who's going to fit in with the studio of the vibe and enjoy what Rice has to offer. It's not necessarily about who plays the best audition, but who has something to say, who is going to benefit from studying with me. There are people that come and I think, oh my gosh, we're not going to get along. This is not going to be good. And so, we just sort of sort those things out interpersonally.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like looking for the diamonds beyond the beyond all the junk in the middle. I've heard that
Exactly.
said before during auditions.
Yeah.
It's just really good um, peace of mind. So I have just last couple questions for you.
Sure.
What advice, as you look back at your career, would you give to clarinetists out there who want to go for a solo career or an orchestral career?
I think people don't go to enough concerts and people don't listen to enough music. It's really simple. And just pulling up whatever the first thing when you search for a piece on YouTube, that doesn't count. And just fast forwarding to the clarinet section that of their solo, that doesn't count. People just don't listen to music, and it's really apparent when I hear a lot of people play. And you have all of the answers to the test right there. You can hear and be inspired, imitate,
Mhm.
um, and that's my biggest advice for people.
We touched a little bit on the Norwegian ensemble, but other than that, do you have any other clarinetists you
Netherlands,
recommend?
Netherlands, the Netherlands.
Netherlands, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any
Other than,
other clarinetists you recommend we listen to?
oh my goodness. Everybody. You have to listen to everybody. You know, you have to listen to the people from the past, people from now. You have to hear all different styles. Anybody that says, I only will listen to this, they're crazy. Truly crazy. It's important to like have a have a well balanced perception of what the client can sound like.
Yeah. So is before we wrap up,
Yeah.
do you have you mentioned before you had like upcoming performances coming up. Is there any you're particularly excited about that you'd like to share?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I've got my music right here. Um, what have I got? I've got coming up. Um, oh, this great piece. Really excited about this by Valerie Coleman. Can you see it? It's all funky. Um, the video. Valerie Coleman Portraits of Langston is for flute, clarinet, and piano, and it's a wonderful piece. So I'm playing that in a few weeks, and in Santa Barbara, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up? I'll definitely like any links that we talked about or should be put in. I'll put in the descriptions and everything so people can find you.
Fantastic. No, I'm. This is just such a pleasure, and thankful for people like you, Emily, that you're putting the clarinet out there in a whole different manner of for people to hear personalities and stories. It's great. It shouldn't just be on podcasts about the news. This is much, much better.
Yeah, it's always been my goal to share the stories and the personalities behind the music. And with you having such a successful career, I'm really glad that you could find some time to just talk with me a little bit about your experience and your knowledge. And I know the listeners are really going to enjoy listening to this
Great.
episode. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very, very much. And I guess that's about it.
Yeah, if there's like any future albums or recordings or anything like that that comes out in the future and you want to come back on and tell us about your inspiration and thoughts behind it, you're always welcome.
Sounds good. I've got the one album out now, but and the sequel will be coming soon.
Oh, what is the album?
The one that's out right now
Yeah.
is called Gentle Notion, and it
Mm.
has music of Joan Tower and has a Copland Sonata on it. And it's a wonderful album, I think. A great selection of music.
If you can tell us what is the sequel gonna include?
Can't tell you,
Oh, okay. I guess we'll find out then.
but you'll find
Do
out
you have,
soon.
yeah, do you have a release date?
No, it's not even been recorded yet, so
Oh,
definitely
okay.
not a release date. We're still finalizing the repertoire with my
Okay.
partner, Connor Hannock.
Yes. Well, me as well as the rest of the listeners will be sitting on the edge of our seats and
Cool.
checking your socials, waiting for the sequel to
Oh my
come
God.
out.
My socials, yeah. Oh boy.
hmm
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and talking with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. We'll hopefully meet in person soon.
For sure.